Have you ever reached a goal you worked on for years only to feel empty the very next day?
It's a strange feeling, isn't it?
It's like climbing a mountain, reaching the top, and realizing you forgot why you wanted to be there in the first place.
Many of our listeners tell us they feel this success hangover with their English journey, too.
Exactly. They hit a level, maybe B2, and suddenly the hunger is gone.
But today, we're not just talking about English. We're talking about the engine behind everything we do, our desire.
Welcome to your English Toolbox. I'm Martin.
And I'm Julia. Today, we're looking at what Jay Stringer calls the architecture of desire.
This is a deep dive into why we want what we want, and why sometimes our own desires feel like a mystery to us.
We'll explore why understanding your deeper why is the ultimate productivity tool.
And we'll do it using clear, natural English so you can build your vocabulary while you build a better life. Julia, let's start with why that success hangover happens. Jay Stringer suggests we often treat our goals like a cure.
Like a medicine for the soul? That's a very relatable way to put it.
Yes, we think, if I reach this level of English, my social anxiety will be cured. Or if I get this promotion, my feeling of being invisible will be cured.
But the goal is just a landmark, Martin. It's a sign on the road. It isn't a doctor. It can't heal a wound from the inside.
That is why we feel the false horizon. You know that feeling when you're hiking and you think you see the top of the hill?
Oh, I know it well. Your heart jumps, you push yourself to reach that line, and then you get there and see another higher peak behind it.
Exactly. That's the neurochemistry of dopamine. Our brain gives us a little reward for reaching the goal, but it immediately points to the next horizon.
This is why we are always doing, but never arriving. We are treating our lives like a broken patient that needs constant fixing.
Stringer invites us to stop trying to cure ourselves with goals and start understanding the architecture of why we chose those goals in the first place.
To do that, we have to listen to the three voices of desire.
The first voice is the impulsive voice. This is the child inside us that wants the chocolate cake, the Netflix binge, or the instant gratification.
I know that voice very well. It's loud, it's urgent, and it usually appears when I'm feeling stressed or lonely.
Right. It's an escape. Then there is the social voice. This is the architecture built by other people. Our parents, our boss, or social media.
This is the voice that says, you should want a big house, or you should speak English without an accent because that looks more professional.
It's a borrowed desire. It isn't yours, but you've lived in it for so long you think it belongs to you. It feels heavy because it's a performance.
And the third voice, the one we usually find hardest to hear?
That's the authentic voice. The voice of the soul. This one doesn't scream or demand. It's a map, not a megaphone.
But it's so hard to hear the soul when the social voice is telling you to work harder and the impulsive voice is telling you to hide from your problems.
This is where we build the architecture of fantasy. We create mental movies of a future where we are finally perfect. just to escape the discomfort of today.
We spend so much time in the fantasy of being a fluent polyglot that we actually forget to enjoy the reality of the conversation we are having right now.
Fantasy is a drug, Julia. It numbs the pain of feeling not enough. But, like any drug, the crash is inevitable when you realize the fantasy isn't real.
So the goal isn't to live in the fantasy, but to decode it. What is the fantasy trying to tell us about what we truly need?
If your fantasy is being a famous speaker, maybe you don't actually need the fame. Maybe you just need to feel that your thoughts have value.
That is a much smaller, much more reachable goal. You can find value in one conversation today without needing 1 million followers.
Exactly. It's about finding the authentic need hidden behind the social craving.
In the next part, we're going to look at where these blueprints come from and how we often inherit them from ghosts in our past.
Julia, have you ever looked at your life and realized you are living in a house that someone else designed? Someone who isn't even you?
That's a strange image, Martin. But yes, I think I have. I realized recently that my obsession with being productive wasn't actually my own goal. It was my mother's fear of being seen as lazy.
That is exactly what J. Stringer calls the inheritance of desire. We don't just inherit our eye color or our height from our family. We inherit their unfulfilled dreams and their rigid fears.
It's like being born into a room with no windows, and you never think to ask why it's so dark because that's just how the house was built before you arrived.
And if your parents were always worried about money, you might grow up with an intense desire for a high-status job, even if that job makes you miserable.
You aren't chasing the job because you love the work. You're chasing the job to fix a ghost's anxiety from 30 years ago.
That is the ghost in the architecture. We are using our adult energy to solve childhood problems that don't belong to us anymore.
But it's hard to stop, isn't it? Because we feel like we are betraying our family if we change the blueprints.
Exactly. And that brings us to the architecture of shame. Shame is the blindfold of the soul, Julia.
Shame tells us that if we look too closely at what we truly want, we'll find something bad or broken.
So we hide our true desires in the basement of our personality. We lock the door and we pretend that part of us doesn't exist.
This is the betrayal of the self. We choose to be a good version of what others want, but we leave our true self in the dark.
But here is the psychological truth. When you lock a desire in the basement, it doesn't die. It just gets louder. It starts to bang on the pipes of your life.
Is that why some people have sudden, strange outbursts of anger? Or why they suddenly quit their jobs without a plan?
Yes, it's the authentic voice trying to break through the floorboards. The more we suppress ourselves, the more distorted our desires become. It's like a river that you try to block with a wall. Eventually, the water will find a way out, often through a flood.
So, to remodel our life, we have to go down into the basement with a flashlight and look at what we've hidden.
But most of us don't want to go into the basement, so we use the numbing paradox.
Numbing. That means to make something lose its feeling, like when a dentist gives you an injection.
Exactly. We use doing as a drug. We stay so busy, so productive, and so efficient that we don't have to feel the basement banging on the pipes.
Stringer says that when we numb bad desires, like our loneliness or our fear, we accidentally numb our good desires too.
This is the paradox. You can't selectively numb emotions. If you turn down the volume on your sadness, you turn down the volume on your joy and your creativity too.
That's why so many high achievers feel flat. They are successful, but they can't feel the sun on their face. Their architecture is soundproof, but it's also joy-proof.
We use our phones, our to-do lists, and even our English vocabulary exercises to avoid being still.
Because in the stillness, the smoke of our desire becomes visible, and we are afraid of the fire.
But the fire is where the energy is. If you want to be fluent, if you want to be a leader, you need that internal heat.
So the cost of doing is actually the loss of our own vitality. We are working hard, but we aren't alive while we do it. So, Martin, how do we find our way back? If our mind is full of social voices and inherited blueprints, who can we trust?
Stringer says we must trust the body as the blueprint. The mind is a great liar, Julia, but the body is an honest witness.
I've noticed this. When I'm doing something because I should, my shoulders are always up at my ears. I feel like I'm carrying a heavy backpack.
That is a social voice desire. It feels like a burden. Your body is telling you, this isn't yours. This is a borrowed blueprint.
But when I'm doing something authentic, even if it's very difficult, my chest feels expansive. I feel like I can breathe deeper.
That expansive feeling is the soul saying, yes. This is a room we were meant to live in. If you listen to the body, you can distinguish between an impulsive voice, which feels like a scratch you need to itch, and an authentic voice, which feels like a pull toward a horizon.
But to hear that pull, we have to pay the cost of being. We have to be willing to be still and feel the discomfort of the basement.
Most of us are terrified of being bored or being quiet because that's when the architecture of shame starts talking.
It says, "You're wasting time. You're not good enough. Why aren't you working?"
But if you stay in the room with that voice, eventually it runs out of things to say. And underneath it, you find the real blueprint.
It's like waiting for the mud in a lake to settle. Only then can you see the fish at the bottom.
This is the most productive thing you can do for your personal development. Stop building for 5 minutes and just look at the foundation.
Are you learning English to prove you are smart to someone who isn't even in the room?
Or are you learning because your soul yearns to hear the stories of people on the other side of the planet?
One is a wall, the other is a bridge. Your body knows which one is which.
Listen to your breath. Listen to your heart rate. Your body is the architect's assistant, and it has the original plans.
In our final part, we're going to talk about the sacredness of failure and what happens when the whole building falls down.
Because sometimes, Julia, the best thing that can happen to a bad house is a storm that shows you it needs to be rebuilt.
I'm looking forward to that. It sounds like hope, even in the ruins.
It is hope, because you are not the building. You are the architect. Julia, let's talk about a feeling that most of us try to hide because it feels a bit ugly or small inside.
I know exactly which one you mean, Martin. It's that little green monster we call envy.
We usually feel a deep sense of shame when we feel envious of someone else, don't we? We try to push it down and pretend it isn't there because we think it makes us look petty or competitive.
But Jay Stringer has a completely different perspective on this specific emotion. He says that in the architecture of desire, envy is actually one of your most valuable diagnostic tools.
That's a radical way to look at a feeling we normally try to delete. Think of envy as a high-resolution map of your own unlived potential.
So, if I feel a sharp pain of envy when I see a colleague speaking with incredible confidence in a meeting, what is that map showing me? It is showing you a room in your own house that you haven't given yourself permission to open yet.
It's saying that I have that capacity for confidence too, but it's currently covered in dust and old boxes in my basement.
Exactly. Envy points directly to the parts of your soul that are tired of being suppressed. Instead of resenting the other person for their success, we should actually be grateful for them. They are acting as a flashlight, showing us what is actually possible for our own architecture if we are willing to build it.
This requires a very different way of talking to ourselves, doesn't it? It requires a more humane vocabulary of longing.
We often use very shallow words like cravings or wants to describe our internal movements, but Stringer prefers deeper, almost sacred terms like yearning or ache.
Yearning feels so much more meaningful than just wanting a new gadget or a higher salary. A yearning is a deep, soul-level desire for something beautiful, like connection, self-expression, or freedom.
And an ache is a physical reminder in the body that a vital part of us is currently missing from our daily life. If you feel an ache when you see someone traveling and using their English fluently, don't just ignore it or feel bad about yourself.
That ache is the architect inside you telling you that your current lifestyle has become too small for your spirit. It is an invitation to look at the blueprints again and realize you were meant for more than just survival.
But what happens when we try to build that new room and the whole structure collapses?
That is the moment we all fear more than anything else in our personal development. We work on a project, we study for a difficult test, or we try a new habit, and then we fail miserably.
Jay Stringer uses a very strange phrase for this: the sacredness of failure. It sounds almost offensive to call a mistake or a collapse sacred when it hurts so much.
But think about a building that has fallen down in a storm. When the walls are gone, you can finally see the condition of the foundation clearly for the first time.
When things are going well, we are too distracted to check the basement or the quality of the soil underneath us. We just keep adding more bricks and more weight to a structure that might be fundamentally unstable.
So, a failure is often the only time we are forced to be completely honest with our own architecture. It is the moment where the social voice and the architecture of fantasy are finally stripped away.
And in the ruins, we can see if we were building on the sand of other people's expectations or on the solid rock of our own truth. Many of us actually need a crash to realize We were building the wrong house for the wrong reasons.
It is a painful experience, but it might be the most honest moment you will ever have. This is where the real identity shift begins to take place.
You realize that you are not the building that fell down. You are the architect who is still standing in the middle of the debris with the tools in your hands.
You can look at those same bricks, your skills, your past mistakes, and your hard-learned lessons, and build something new. You can build something that actually fits the authentic voice of your soul this time.
This is the ultimate productivity tool, the courage to quit the race you never wanted to run. It allows you to finally start walking your own path at a pace that feels like home to you.
Before we close the toolbox today, I want to give our listeners a way to apply this to their own lives tonight.
We call it the Final Desire Audit. Pick one major goal you are currently chasing with all your energy.
Now look at that goal through the lens of the 3 voices we discussed. Ask yourself, is this goal being driven by an impulsive voice that is just trying to escape a feeling of loneliness or boredom?
Or is it being driven by a social voice that is still trying to please a ghost from your childhood? If you realize that the goal is inherited or displaced, please don't be hard on yourself.
Just acknowledging the old blueprint is a massive victory in itself. Use the body witness tool we talked about during the second part of our show.
When you think about reaching this goal, does your chest feel tight and restricted, or does it feel expansive and light? A tight chest is a warning that you are building a wall. An expansive heart is a sign that you are building a bridge.
If the architecture feels like a heavy burden, maybe it's time to change the plans entirely. You have the right to move the walls and paint the rooms however you like, because you are the one living there. We've traveled through the dark basement of our shame and stood in the ruins of our failures today.
How are you feeling after this deep dive, Martin?
I feel like my own house is a little bit bigger and has much more light in it now, Julia.
I feel the same way, and I hope our listeners do too. We are moving from performing our desires to being our desires.
This shift makes the world feel a lot quieter and much more peaceful. You stop needing the world to tell you that you are enough because you finally understand the architecture of your own worth.
Remember, friends, English is just the path we are walking together to reach these deeper truths. It is the wood and the nails we use to build these connections with ourselves and others.
But the real destination is a more conscious, more honest, and more humane version of yourself. Be a kind architect to yourself this week as you look at your daily habits.
If you find a crack in your motivation, don't just patch it quickly with a new to-do list or a new app. Stop and look at what that crack is trying to show you about your foundation.
It might be the only way the light finally gets into a room you've kept dark for years. And maybe that room was meant to be full of light and life all along. This has been your English Toolbox. I'm Martin.
And I'm Julia. Thank you for giving us your most valuable asset today, your attention. We know how precious your time is. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you in the next episode.